Call the meeting to order. It is 8:30. The meeting has been properly noticed. 8:30 Saturday morning, December 8th. Call the meeting to order. Mr. Mike Stratton will be acting as recording secretary. Mr. Stratton, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Gray.
Pam Gray, yes.
Member Rockford.
Yes.
And Chairman Schultz.
Yes. My name is Kevin Schultz. I will be chairing this meeting. Myself and Ms. Long are the senior trustees, which is why we were on this committee. Due to conflicts, the Chief Judge has appointed Ms. Rockford as the third member of the board. The purpose of this meeting will be as follows. The board shall take up the question as to whether or not the nomination papers or petitions are in proper form, and whether or not were they filed within the time frame and under the conditions required by law, and whether they are the genuine nominating papers or petitions which they purport to be, and in general shall decide whether the nominating papers or petitions on file are valid, or whether the objections presented should be sustained. We need to adopt some rules for this meeting. One change that we would like, which I believe has been notified to all of the respondents, is that we would like to have, for what we believe to be Monday's meeting, attendance by phone. One member of this committee cannot be physically present, the other two will, and we would like that person to be able to vote by phone. Make a motion to allow attendance by phone. First, second by Ms. Gray. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It was a unanimous vote. All three voted yes to allow for attendance by phone. I believe all of the respondents and petitioners have received copies of all documents. This group has retained Jason Brokaw with Griffin Williams, who will be the attorney for us for these proceedings. Mr. Brokaw.
So, real briefly, it's pretty much standard operating procedure in these proceedings for the village or municipal attorney to recuse him or herself, which Mr. Craven has done. He has recommended the retention of our office to handle counsel for the electoral board. This allows a little bit of separation between the administration and the board to conduct this hearing, or these hearings, I should say, and avoid the appearance of impropriety or any conflict of interest. So we just need the board to formally approve the retaining of me in my office as counsel.
Make a motion, Ms. Gray.
Yes.
Make a motion to retain Mr. Brokaw as counsel. All those in favor, someone saying aye.
Aye.
It was carried unanimously.
The next thing that we have on the agenda moving forward is accepting records from Sangamon County. I believe there have been a number of records retained from Sangamon County, and I believe the objector will be addressing some of that, and I'm sure the candidates will as well. But the rules do allow for the presentment and acceptance of Sangamon County records, including nominating papers and voter registration records. Unless there's some objection to that, I would just ask that the board adopt the Sangamon County records.
Make a motion to adopt the Sangamon County records.
Yes.
Second. All those in favor, someone saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Carried unanimously.
The next item on the agenda, Mr. Chair, is the accepting of briefs and or pleadings. We may want to take a minute to clarify what's going on here. Per the call, the three candidates have submitted excuse me, a motion to strike and to dismiss in each of the numbered matters. So one in 2018-1 and one in 2018-2 by Ms. Shaw, one in 2018-3, one in 2018-4 by Mr. Carter, and counties, one in 2018-5 and 2018-6 by Ms. Jenkins. These being in the nature of a motion to dismiss, excuse me. We should probably, before getting to the hearings, discuss how the parties would like to handle those. The board has the option of disposing of motions to dismiss prior to getting into case in chief, but I suspect, having not read them thoroughly, that they are centered on some of the same issues that will be addressed in evidence, and otherwise there may be some desire, especially for timing, that the board take them all at once and then render its decision simultaneously on the motions to dismiss as well as the merits of the case. So I think we should probably hear from the candidates as to their positions. I don't know if you want to come one by one, if you've got a certain opinion on how you'd like to handle your motions. Maybe just go in order, in numerical order. Ms. Shaw, do you have any preference?
What are you talking about? I'm sorry.
You just filed 2 motions
Yeah.
to dismiss.
Mm-hmm.
In typical fashion, a motion to dismiss is handled prior to the merits of the case, getting into the substantive issues. But glancing at these quickly, it looks like they center on the same issues that are in the actual case in chief of the objection.
Correct.
So if we were to handle them first and then get to the merits of the case, you'd probably be extending the process out somewhat substantially. So you preserved your arguments. Is there any objection to the board making its decision on your motion at the same time it makes its decision on the objection? Okay. And I'll ask the same question on behalf of the board to Mr. Carter. Do you have any objection in proceeding in that way?
No.
Oh, sorry. And then Ms. Jenkins, do you have any objection to that procedure?
No.
Okay. So, board members, what I would recommend to you is entertaining a motion to dispose of the motion to dismiss at the same time you make your decision on the merits of the case.
Ms. Gray? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is the several docket numbers that we have to take up today. I think it's important that everyone here in attendance understand that we are now shifting from what would be considered a meeting to a hearing, and that only those who are properly before the board should be participating. Please do not interrupt from the audience. That means only objectors, candidates, and witnesses should be participating. Any interruptions will only serve to confuse the record. We have a court reporter that's here taking a transcript, and we want that record to be as clean as possible. If interruptions do take place, you may be asked to leave, so please just keep that in mind. Before we get into the merits of this, have the parties had any chance to talk about whether or not anything can be agreed to or stipulated to, or if any of the issues need to be resolved, or withdrawn or set aside before we get into the cases in chief? No. Would you like some time to do that? Is there anything that has changed, I guess, for moving forward? Okay. Let me make sure I get all this. In this particular, let me ask this, is Mr. Edwards present at this time? Okay, so there was 2 objections filed in each of the docketed items. One was by Mr. Fines and the other by Mr. Edwards. They appear to be very similar, if not the same, in their form and substance. It would be my recommendation to the board that if there's no objections, that these be consolidated on a candidate basis so that we're not duplicating arguments and wasting everyone's time. Is there any objection to that by council? Okay. Candidates, did you have any objections to that? Okay. So I would just...
Seeing no objections from the respondents or the petitioners, I recommend that we consolidate cases.
Second.
Yes. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimously.
Okay, so just to be clear then, that means 2018 1 and 2 will be handled at the same time, 2018 3 and 4 will be handled at the same time, and 2018 5 and 6 will be handled at the same time. last thing I have to do for the benefit of the board and the participants today is that the sequence pursuant to the rules will be that the objector will proceed with their case in chief first, presenting their arguments and their evidence to the board.
Trying to get running.
That's right. The candidates then will have their opportunity to respond to the arguments and present their case in chief and present their arguments and evidence. And then finally, the objector will have an opportunity for rebuttal if they so desire. At the end of each of those particular stages, the board, pursuant to rules, has its ability to make an independent examination of witnesses or ask questions of counsel or candidates as to any clarification they may need on anything that's been presented. And if there's no questions from objector or candidates at this time, I think we'll start with the first case. You just want to call?
The first case is 2018 Ms. Shaw.
Excuse me, can you get your name?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm out of order. The
Objector will go first.
I apologize.
Liston, L-I-E-J, Pico, P-I-C-C-O, Fine,
Mr. Fines, not to interrupt you, but will you be providing any of your own testimony?
No.
Okay.
Just arguing on
You
the,
don't have to swear him in.
yeah, I'll be calling out FA witness me too.
Okay.
And just for the record, you have all the forms that Pam Gray's office had. They're all admitted as evidence.
Let me show you
Just
what
for-
I have. Yeah, and then I will let Ms. Shaw look as well.
What you submitted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so everything you submitted was what I'm talking about. So same thing. So that way we don't have to introduce evidence each time they exhibit.
So just the petitioner's form, is that correct? And voter's registration?
Voter's registration and your,
Let's do this with each one of them so you guys have an opportunity to confirm that these are the records that were received from the county clerk's office.
I think they'll make it a lot easier evidence wise.
Yeah. Just make sure you don't have any objections to those.
This is what I'm talking about. So you and I don't have to turn this over. This is the same for each one, basically.
Yeah. There's slight variations, but I figured each one will allow you to confer to make sure that you agree with the accurate set.
It's a lot easier for extra to have everything further. Mr. Carter, you understand what I'm talking about too?
I have basic understanding, but I'm not exactly sure.
Same thing, so we don't have to introduce evidence. It's everything you submitted for election. For both of you don't have to introduce it. They have it as regular. This is for, but yours is the same. No voter registration, no voter registration, and then your signature in this form. That way, so you all know what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
All right, great, thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
when we call yours, we'll do that for you as well. Give you an opportunity.
Okay.
I just don't want to mix any of the papers up.
Okay. Sorry about that, thank you. I just want to make sure this, I know it's Saturday morning, we want to make sure we can get through this streamline as effective and efficient as possible. Thank you first for hearing it on Saturday morning. Before I get into the merits, this case, again, these are both consolidated, so it's 1 and 2, is that correct?
That's right.
I'd like you guys to take judicial notice that the consolidated primary election date is February 26, 2019, and that the consolidated general election date is April 2nd, 2019. Regarding Ms. Shaw's petition, on the her nominating petition forms, the date is, she has placed the April 2nd, 2019 general election date on there. The petition form clearly calls for the primary date, and I'll read the language of it just for the sake of everybody here. Everybody has it in front of them. It says, quote, consolidated primary election to be held on blank. It says in parentheses, date of primary election, provided if no primary election is required, the candidate's name will appear on the ballot at the consolidated election, just said office and term, end quote. So again, I ask that the court, or the board, take judicial notice of those two dates. The second objection is regarding the fastening of the nomination petitions. There's a lot of case law on this subject, whether the proper binding of a petition is valid. Getting to the nuances of it, they've even studied binder clips, paper clips, and staple. It has been a fatal flaw to nominating petitions if they are not fastened in any such manner. I'm not going to cite the case, but I believe it's Williams versus Clark, that indicates that fatal flaw. And I'd like to call Mike Stratton as a witness to the binding or lack of binding. I believe he was a clerk who accepted the petitions in all these cases. And it's up to you guys how you want to handle this. I don't think for everybody's sake we want to call Mike back on each case. Can we accept his testimony or whatever we put forth on the petitions?
No,
No.
we would like him to speak on each one. It's different, we believe.
Okay, that's fine.
Is it different in each case?
Yes.
So we'll call, you can ask the question in each one, and then they can make the objection so that the record is clean.
I call Mike Stratton.
What do you want me to do? I would say, I don't know who's
Right here.
Those are mine.
materials.
Yep.
If you don't want him to see those, you may want to move those. Just want the court reporter and the interpreter both be able to see him.
I need to swear Mr. Stratton in.
Yes.
Mr. Stratton, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Can you state your name for the record?
Michael David Stratton.
Can you state your occupation?
I'm the village administrator for the Village of Sherman.
As part of your duties of taking these nomination petitions and accepting them?
Yes, I also serve as the clerk for the Village of Sherman, which also makes me the local election official.
Regarding Mrs. Shaw's statement of candidacy and her nominating petitions, did you receive those?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you stamp these?
Yes, sir, I did.
That's your initial, well, it's kind of hard to see, but is that your initial?
Yes, sir, indeed, yes.
Okay. Was there anyone else present when you accepted these forms?
Yes, I believe Trevor Clapfelter was present, along with Ms. Jenkins, one of the candidates.
Regarding Ms. Shaw's, when she filed her forms?
Yes.
Okay. When you accepted these forms, the nominating petitions, did you notice how they were put together?
Yeah, they were provided to me loosely bound. There was no binding at all on any of the petitions.
When you say no binding at all, was there, I'm sorry, the case law talks about binding very specifically. So, was there a paper clip?
No, sir.
Was there a staple?
No, sir.
Was there a black clip? I can't remember what the term is,
No,
but
sir.
tape?
No, sir.
No glue?
No, sir.
And it was just, you accepted that on November 19th, is that correct?
That is correct.
And there were no other forms filed at that time or subsequent?
No, sir.
That's all I have.
For this witness?
For the 1 and 2.
Okay. Ms. Shaw, you have an opportunity to cross-examine him before we have him step down. Do you have any questions of Mike related to the questions that Mr. Fines has asked?
Could you like come over?
Yeah,
Sorry.
just so the court reporter and the interpreter can both step over the podium.
And it has to be in question form, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What makes you so adamantly able to recall that the paperwork that was handed to you, the petitions that were handed to you, were not bound together by paperclip?
Very good question. My response is this. I have been in public service for over 25 years. I've served in various capacities in those 25 years, specifically and especially in the ways of preserving minutes as a clerk, as a recorded secretary, and as a local election official for other government bodies for a 10-year period of time. So I'm very familiar with the rules, regulations, and what have you of preserving and maintaining the integrity of all the records as they are provided to me as the official for that particular purpose. Does that make me an expert? No, but I do recall of all those things, that the documents that were submitted had no paperclip bindings or were not bound in any manner.
Speaking of integrity, has your integrity been questioned over the recent years of your last employment?
No, sir. No, ma'am.
Okay. Secondly, when you were handed all the petitions, you were to make copies of them, correct?
Excuse me?
When you were handed the petitions at the filing, you were to make copies of all of them, correct?
At the time of the filing?
Mhm.
No, ma'am.
You're not required to take them, make copies of them at any time?
At any time?
At any time?
After the recording of the documents, if someone wants to FOIA request the information, which has been done, then we do in fact provide copies to those people who wish to have it.
When you were handed the petitions, did you, how did you go about making sure how many pages were there when you gave receipt of collection of those? Did you remove the paperclip and go, can you just show me, like if this is the, when you were reviewing those to give me the receipt, did you do this? Or were you able, were they loose? Were you able to go like this? Do you recall, were they stapled or where you could go like this? Do you
Michelle,
remember?
sorry, just so that the record's clear.
Yeah.
Try to ask one question.
Yeah,
and let
there's,
him answer.
yeah. Can you show us how when those papers were given to you, how you thumbed through those?
Okay. Well, number one, the papers that were provided me as their petitions had no paperclip, no binding whatsoever. No. So the way that it was done is I accepted the papers as you provided those to me. And I flipped them over one by one to make sure that you had the requisite number of documents and the appropriate documents, and I checked those off on the receipt form that I provided.
Flipping them over one by one.
Yes, ma'am.
Please elaborate on that when you flip them
From
over.
the top to the bottom.
Bound in nature, if you can't do that if they're not bound though. That's why I asked for you to show.
And they were bound.
So then you wouldn't be able to flip them up like this. You
Well,
would be flipping
ma'am,
them.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
but you gotta ask
All
questions.
right.
You'll have a chance to present your testimony.
Sure. Okay, at this time, I'm just gonna go back to our case law then.
Hold on, is that all the questions you
Yeah,
had for him?
no more,
Okay.
no more.
All right, then, did you have any rebuttal questions for Mr. Stratton?
Yes.
Okay.
As your duties as clerk or your experience as clerk, have you been trained on how to handle these petitions?
Yes, sir.
When did that training occur?
It's occurred over the 25 years of public service I have had. Can I name specifically what those dates were?
Yes, please. If you,
No,
well, if you can
cannot.
recall them, but yeah.
I do have it. I am in contact on a regular basis with the county clerk's office, especially during these periods, to make sure there are not any changes or nuances that I need to be aware of as I accept filings.
And you're certified, and this is your official duty, and nobody's questioned the integrity of any past certification or clerking duties in.
Never in my 25 years.
That's all.
Okay.
I think that's all for you for now.
Okay. Yes. Mr. Fines, if you want to continue with your presentation.
So that was on point 2 on whether they were bound or not bound. Again, there's case law stating that if they're completely unbound, that is a fatal flaw to the nomination petition process. In fact, the form even has at the top, it has wording at the very top of the nominating petition that says bind here with X marks on it. Next is her statement of candidacy and her residency. I believe we all agree to what these forms being in evidence, so I'm not going to pass them out. But for the sake of everybody present, the statement of candidacy reads, I, Tracy Shaw, being first duly sworn or affirmed, say that I reside at 701 Prairie Lake Drive in the city, village, unincorporated area of Sherman, if unincorporated list municipality that provides postal service, zip code 62684, in the county of Sangamon, state of Illinois, that I am qualified voter therein, and that I am a candidate for the nomination election in the office of village president in the village of Sherman, to be voted upon at the election to be held on April 2nd, 2019, date of election, and that I am legally qualified to hold such office, and that I have filled or will file before the close of the petition filing period a statement of economic interest as required by the Illinois Government Ethics Act, and I hereby request that my name be printed upon the official ballot or nomination / election to such office. Signed, Tracy Shaw. Signed and sworn to on November 19th, 2018, and I apologize, I'm going to butcher this name, Dawn Richke as the notary. And thank you for enduring me reading that out loud. Also in evidence already is Ms. Shaw's voter registration from Don Gray's office. There's really 3 items of importance here. The first is that, you pull those out, there's one that says date of issue or voter registration. It says the effective date is 10/13/2015. That address says 1065 Fieldside Lane, Sherman, Illinois. And then on the lower copy, there's a change of address form on here. So I'll give you some time to look.
Mr. Fines, you're referring to the effective date. You're talking about the top right corner of the voter registration card.
Correct.
Date of issue 10/13/2015.
Yeah, just because there's 2 different, looks like there's 2 different forms here. I want to make sure we identify each one.
Okay. So the top being the postcard that an individual sees from Mr. Gray's office, and the bottom being a similarly sized document marked change of address.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So on the change of address for voter registration below, it looks like it has a date stamp of November 28, 2018. That would be after the petitions were filed for this election. In that change of address form to Don Gray, she states her new address is 701 Prairie Lake Drive, Sherman, Illinois. She indicates to Don Gray that she moved to that address on November 20th, 2018. Except on her statement of candidacy form, which was filed on November 19th, 2018, a day before that, she states that she resides there. So part and parcel of the objection is there's various addresses and the dates do not align on for residency, and these are all sworn statements. And unfortunately, Don Gray's certification of address of record for voter registration is the next page, and it shows her certified voter registration address is 175 Possum Pass Court, Sherman, Illinois, 62684. So there's really 3 addresses in question. She's affirmed under her petition that she resides at 701 Prairie Lake Drive, except her information to Don Gray, the date that she actually presented to them is that she moved there the day after she filed the petitions. And then I think that's it for Ms. Carter's case.
Shaw.
Shaw, sorry. Yeah, too many. I got too many papers in front of me.
questions about his presentation of the objection in the first two cases, 1 and 2.
I have one question. I don't understand at the end, you said the other address of 175 Constant Pass. What is the significance of that?
That Don Gray's office has certified that that's her residency for voting purposes.
What are the dates on that?
That's current.
It should be in front.
Any other questions?
No, I have none. Any other member?
No.
All right, and this time, Ms. Shaw will be allowed to present her case in chief.
In reference to the document.
Ms. Shaw, could you
Oh,
just-
sorry.
That's all right.
Lots of moving around here. In reference to the document that Mr. Fyans is asking you guys to review, will you notice the date where it says received at the top?
Which is it, the statement I came to see?
In regards to the date in which I moved to my residence, you will see that I had gone to change my registration before there was even an objection filed here, just showing that I was doing my due diligence to change my address. If this is a question as to whether or not I did it within the 30 days that they recommend you change your voter's registration card once you move, then I'm guilty of that, but I'm sure that that's something that Mr. Don Gray's office can take up with me. But as far as for the board's purpose, I've done my due diligence as far as updating those records to indicate where I live now currently, and did so before the objection. I think that's very important to note. I would also like to talk about the date